Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Native American culture has always been a source of fascination to many. They held such wealth of knowledge and beauty of culture. One of the medicine men have written a story about when he was still very young and the culture was still very much alive. And he spoke about how in the winter, when it would get so cold and the plants would dry up, that they would be so thankful for whatever they saved. But they would become so hungry, and at those times the chief would call everyone around a bonfire and they would worship. And he describes it that the chief had this staff with feathers coming out, and he would strike it on the ground. And as he would start chanting, and the entire tribe would chant along with him. And that one particular night, when everybody was very hungry, they hadn't eaten for a while, and the chief had called this particular prayer session to see where they should move. He wanted the Great Spirit to guide them so that they could find food. And he says, as a young kid in his mother's arms, when he heard the cries of the chant, he felt overwhelmed by the chanting and the emotion, as though they were crying for help. And so he actually started crying. And his mother comforted him and said, "Don't use your voice in selfish pity, but turn your voice to the Lord and ask Him to guide you." And so he tried. He mustered up the courage. And as he looked ahead, the chief was standing in front of him and brought the staff to his head, as though blessing him and encouraging him. He joined the adults in their chanting, and the prayer session ended when the chief declared that the Great Spirit had given him the guidance that was necessary. The next morning they moved camp, and within 2 days they found buffalo tracks. And the third day, one of the hunters from the tribe was able to kill a buffalo, and the entire tribe ate after many days, and so they rejoiced. Again, the chief called the entire tribe together at night around the fire, and they chanted once again to the Great Spirit. But this time it was in gratitude and appreciation. And he describes that even though it was the exact same chant, the mood was so incredibly different. And that night he chanted with a smile on his face and rejoiced in his heart. And the chief came around once again, bringing the staff down on his head, and he swears the chief winked at him. In so many cultures, chanting is a part of worship. We see it in churches, in choir singers. We see it in Buddhist temples. We see it all around the world. And the Indian mantras, the ones from the Hindu scriptures, have grown in popularity in North America, so that we have people like Krishna Das and so many others singing kirtans. And the reason is because it works. We only continue doing it because it works. And so in the Chalisa, when it says, Jo satabara patakara koi chute pande mahasaka hoi, Jo yahapade Hanuman Chalisa hoya siddhi sakhi gaurisa. The actual verses of the Chalisa is saying that if we chant the Chalisa 100 times, we gain whatever we want. It's not really about gaining what we want, it's about chanting it 100 times. If we chant something for that period of time, the mind gains so much momentum of energy through the chanting. Our subconscious minds carry millions and millions of impressions, fears, emotions, memories, snippets of conversations, desires, grudges. and to erase every single impression would take lifetimes. Therefore, a considerable period of time would be wasted in trying to eradicate everything that we have collected. So we would be much better off focusing our time on creating a connection with the divine and increasing our connection with the divine. And as we get absorbed in the thought and the love of the divine, the subconscious is purified without the effort of taking each one out separately. I read a very interesting quote. "My train of thoughts derailed. There were no survivors." So clever how we can play with words. My train of thoughts derailed. How often we're thinking about something and we're not able to stop. The thought just keeps coming back, or we just build on it and we're not able to free ourselves from that train of thinking. But if we introduce chanting, if we introduce even just music, we can change the mood of our mind. We can change the direction of our thinking. Music just has that quality. And chanting even more so, because the way the sounds are put together in the mantras are engineered to create a particular vibration in our mind. And so chanting has physical benefits. So many studies that the Dalai Lama has initiated to show the effect of chanting on the body and the mind. There's the psychological benefits that when the mind is absorbed in the chanting and it finds peace, it finds refuge, it's able to de-stress so much more, thereby improving our health, improving our relationship, improving our attitude. And in the scriptures it tells us, chanting purifies our speech. There's times when we say something and even as we're saying it, we think, oh, why did I say that? It's hurtful. Or why did I say that? It's so insulting. It's gossip. It's harmful. But it's too late. It's already out. Or sometimes we're not aware of it at all and we just completely indulge in gossip or criticism. And in moods of anger and hate, we can be so nasty in what we say, whether it be our actual verbal use of the language or the written use of the language. But when we chant, whatever we've done knowingly or unknowingly, which is harmful with our speech, the chanting purifies the instrument we use for speech and our speech itself. And our thoughts are nothing but speech. And so even when we thinking, so much of it is negative, whether it be directed to ourselves or the world around. And chanting purifies even that. And so, to quote Krishna thus, chanting is a way of getting in touch with ourselves. It's an opening of the heart and letting go of the mind and thoughts. It's a way of letting go of thoughts. It's an extremely powerful means of meditating and reconnecting with our core, with our essence. It's associated within the Indian culture to devotion, and people who are not so smart, well then, let them chant. But actually, if you're smart, you will chant, for it has immediate benefits, and it has extremely long-term benefits, and you won't know until you try. Think about it.